Okay, we are moving right along in this video series. My name is Keith Hayden, and welcome to an author learned how to code video series. First of all, if you missed the first 3 videos in this series now, shame on you. Go back and watch those things, or maybe not shame on you if you just found this video by accident. But there are 3 other videos where I talk about the lessons that I learned, why I started, why I'm doing this, really who I am, and yeah, you just want to go back. You don't want to come in the middle of the story because now we're on the back half of the story of my first 100 days of learning how to code. And of course, the dog starts barking right as I start recording. That's the way it goes. So in month 4, which was last month when I'm recording this, February 2022, I my job intensified. I'm trying to learn how to code, and I transitioned to learning JavaScript. I completed the HTML and CSS blocks in the Odin project, which is the main way that I was learning how to code, that I have been learning how to code. And yeah, I've gotten really far in it at this point, and I was really happy and very proud to move on to JavaScript. So, but another thing happened at this point in the story, which was I kind of hit, and this probably started when I was doing my solo project in January, that I hit this kind of slog. I think it was around like day 60 or day 50. And I at this point, I'm not really counting the days. I mean, it's just the days just go by. And really the way I was keeping track of the days was when I was posting on Twitter. I would just be like, hey, what day was it last, when I posted? Just to make sure I didn't duplicate days, to screw myself and be like, oh, I did an extra day. Why did I do that? So yeah, it was just kind of, I wasn't getting bored with it, but it was just, you hit this kind of grind, of, okay, you're making little gains and you finish this project, but now what? Like it just kind of gets to be a slog. So that that's going to happen. And as I mentioned in my last video, when life hits, and this is one of those things when life hits, right? Because burnout is a real thing, y'all. And this this was one of the things I had to come to grips with, especially after I started working in on my part-time job while trying to learn how to code. Is some days I only had 15 minutes to get some coding in. 15 minutes. And you're probably saying to yourself, 15 minutes, you can't do a damn thing. It's 15 minutes. And uh, that's largely true. You can't do like a work on a huge project or get a huge chunk of code out in that amount of time, but you can do some reading. You can work on a few lines. You can work on a challenge. You can do something in 15 minutes. It's still something. It's not nothing. So I guess that's my next lesson is use the time you've got. There are people, I really admire a lot of the people on tech Twitter because there are people with kids. There are people with full-time jobs. There are people with family. I'm married, so at this point in the story, we had kind of a family thing go down over here, so that took a lot of my time out away from being able to sit down and really concentrate, right? Because especially when you're learning something new, at least for me, like I can't be kind of doing it passively. I need to sit down and really focus on that thing, especially for coding, something like that, to where it's like it's a challenge for me to absorb it. So I found the best time of day for me was early in the morning. As soon as I got up, 5:30 in the morning, that's when I would hit the coding. That's when I would read, and that's when I would do the majority of my stuff because you hear this dog barking. Maybe you can't hear it because I got a decent microphone and it doesn't pick up a lot of the outside stuff, but dog starts barking, neighbors start moving, trucks start outside, all that just noise, just distractions start happening the more like the day goes on. So I found the morning is the best time for me. Maybe for you, it's at night. Maybe you got kids and maybe you got to wait until after they're asleep and you can get your 15, half an hour, 30, hit this thing down here. You get your 15, 30 minutes, hour after your kids go to sleep, or maybe it's after dinner, after school if you're a student, right? I don't know what it is for you, but you've got to find that time and you've really got to protect it. You've got to encircle it. Be like, no, this is my coding time. Mine. Don't touch it. Just like that. So The next lesson that I learned during this time is, as I'm hitting this slog and I'm just like, I'm not as motivated as I was when I started, 3 months before, I started taking days off, like deliberate days off. But here's the thing, I would actually count it towards my 100 days of code. And maybe some of y'all watching this, oh, that's cheating. You can't do that, whatever. But it was so necessary. And it a lot of people talking about mental health nowadays, but I see this all the time on social media. It's like, oh, I'm taking a day off from social media, but here you are posting on social media, So those days off, I I try not to do that. I try and be like, okay, today is a non-coding day, and I would advertise on my, kind of break my own rule, but yeah, I would advertise on my Twitter and be like, hey, today's a day off. I'm taking a day off. This is day 65 or whatever day it was. And you'll see that if you get my book, Beginner's Guide to Coding in Web3, you'll see that I take days off and proud of it because I got a life. I got a wife. I got other stuff that I want to do outside of learning how to code. And I think it speaks to balance. I think it speaks to, hey, I'm in this for the long haul, so I know I need to take breaks. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So I need to be rested and relaxed. And if I'm doing coding and trying to do all these other things in my life 24/7, it's just not going to work. Don't be afraid to take days off. And I think that's my last lesson for this video. It is. That's my last lesson. So join me in the final video where I wrap things up and I talk about how I made it to the finish line for my first 100 days of code. I'm so excited to share that with you. There's so many resources, y'all, in the description of this video. You've got my recordings, you've got my writings, you've got a ton of my documentation that I did as I was going through this challenge. And I really want you to dig into those because I want you to learn from my mistakes. I want you to learn, save yourself time and stress of making these mistakes yourself. Just listen to how I screwed up or listen to how I did something correctly and copy that. I want you to copy that. As a teacher, I love it when people copy me. That is the best part. That means you're doing what one I ask you to do if you're like one of my students. But it means you really want to learn and make it your own. Of course, you're going to have to make your own mistakes. You're going to have to do your own thing to make it fit into your life. But going off of somebody else's template has walked the same path, especially at the very early stages like I have, it's gold, y'all. You don't see this a lot. You see a lot of people, they go 100 days of code and maybe they tweet and then they come out on the other side. Hey, I did it. I got hired. Well, how the hell did they do it? You got the blueprint right here. I'm giving it to you live and no charge. Just go down there, check out my resources, and you'll be all the better for it. Make life easier for you. All right. I keep hitting this thing down here. I will see you in the last video in this series.